We got a Zoomer.
Good morning.
Good morning. You can hear me, right? Yes. Oh, good. Here's some footsteps. I'll wait a few minutes. Started. Thank you so much. That'll be a while before we get to that. Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us. Hi, good morning. How are you? Good, good.
Hi, good morning.
Did you get your packet back there?
Oh, I did not.
Yeah, there's a packet just I think there. Rebecca, you can download some of the forms that we've got. It should be terms. Then there's the uniform appraisal report that you can look at later. And I've also included 2 letters to appraisals. You're going to find this extremely helpful when you
All right.
are trying to win an appraisal.
Thank you. I have them.
Okay, great. All right. So guys, you know what? I'm gonna get started and we're gonna have a chummy class. I love it. You guys just, ask questions as need be, that sort of thing. Who in here is new? Let's say maybe January forward. And
You might as well consider me new.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
New to real estate?
1 year.
1 year, okay. And you all came from other careers?
Yes.
Interesting you say that. I consider myself new, but I've been licensed a long time because I was dual career and I just switched over to instead of a side hustle, trying to run it as a business. So
Uh-huh.
my mindset has to change.
How about you, Rebecca? Are you new? Hi, Lincoln.
Hi.
Where's yours?
Yeah, I've been here about 7 months or so. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I consider myself new as well.
Okay. How about you, Lincoln? Are you new? Been around a while? Jump in anytime when you get that fixed. So what I'm looking for is kind of to see where you all are coming from. If you've had a contract, if you've had a sale. I love it. Laura's here. Sally's here.
Excellent.
For nothing. Oh, I love this. Yay. We're gonna have fun.
Sharing your time.
And we are basically, an open classroom here, so you just, like I say, jump in and what. So I'm trying to find out a little bit about where you all are coming from, so I just don't, go in over your head with a bunch of stuff. But has anybody had a contract? There were obviously Sally and Laura probably, but had a contract where you had an appraisal to it? Did it come through? Did it not? No contracts. You girls probably have.
I've disputed before.
Yeah, basically, have you had a contract or a sale that whether you were representing buyer or seller, where the appraisal didn't come in or did come in?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what I think you're really gonna love is I'm gonna find you a surefire way and give you a surefire way to make sure that you're always gonna win your appraisal. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit about me, I actually got my license back in 1974. I'm really old. And I decided.
That's my line, not
Yeah,
yours.
I'm older than you. And so I got my real estate license in St. Louis, Missouri, and I wanted to buy rental properties. And I thought, oh, this would be a good thing to do. Went to work for a broker for about a month and I go like, I don't like sales. It's not what I want to do. So I decided to take an appraisal course and fell absolutely in love with appraisal. I just really took the course so that I could see if how to assume value and get that. As luck would have it, hi Paul, as luck would have it, the appraiser was hiring for an intern and I got hired. He was great. I mean, taught me everything I needed to know. At that time, St. Louis, I was the only female appraiser. This was not a female's job back in 1970s. And so I got designated with an IFA designation. I came to to Plano in 1978 and eventually got a realtor's license here. And I really practiced until 92 here in Texas. At that time, I went to work with TRW SMS, and they were a large company, and they transferred me all around. So I had to get certified. It was not only designated as a SRA, a Society Real Estate Appraisers, but I was certified here in Texas, Kansas, Missouri, Ohio, and Georgia. And I traveled all around, and we came here from Georgia in 2016. And I kind of hung out here for a while. And in 2019, I decided, I'm going to renew my license here in Texas. And my real estate license in October of 2019. And guess what happened in 2020? COVID. So I knew nobody really, back here. Most of my friends had just moved on, died, whatever they were all gone. And so I worked with Dave Perry for about 18 months and decided I really couldn't help those people over there. And so I went to work for Monument and did quite well. Love Monument, it was great, but I felt it was time to up my game, and Keller Williams was the one to come. They're not asking me to say this, I am saying this on my own. This is the company to learn how to really be a realtor. And with all the classes that they offer, the opportunities that we have, I'm thrilled to be here. So I'll be celebrating my 4th year in October in real estate and love it. I'm here for good. So we'll just see how the future goes. But what do y'all think of the market right now? Just speak out to me. What have you been seeing? What's your opinion of what is happening in today's market, especially compared to, last year and what we've been used to?
It's quiet.
Is it quiet for you? Okay.
It's a tornado market. Typical before a big shift happens, when a tornado goes down one side of the street and levels it, and the other side nothing happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're
that's
having
what we're
good,
Exactly.
That's bad.
That's what you're seeing in the market. There are
good analogy.
properties out there that are selling multiple offers. Other ones that are being reduced.
Mhm.
There's no rhyme or reason for it. There's not enough comps to be able, you have to go outside the immediate area to find it.
So I'm going to help you with that. Okay, because we just had a situation of my own home where that happened, and we got it appraised. So a couple things you're going to get out of this class. It is not my goal in this class to teach you how to do an appraisal. It is to talk to you about where the appraiser is coming from, get inside their head, what standards and practices that they have to perform in order to do their job, and what we're going to do. So we're actually going to start, I want you to know how to navigate the appraisal. So I did give you a copy of just something I grabbed off the internet of an appraisal. And we'll just briefly go through that at the end of the class. It's not anything, it's a lot of paperwork. Really, the first 3 pages is the only information on there you need to know. The rest is just all, about the appraiser protecting himself from a lawsuit. So there you go. We're going to spend most of the first hour on terms for sure. Maybe it's just a little longer, and they're important. And the reason is, it's because everything you learn on here is transferred to the second page of the appraisal where all the adjustments are made. So we have to get that information from somewhere. And that's on the first page of that URAR. And so we'll hit that later. I've got it up on the screen here, and I think it'll be easier for you to do that. I'm also, for those of you who stayed at the end of the class, I have the open letter to the appraiser that you're going to be putting in your reports when you do this. So this is the winner right here. Okay. Other than that, the terms, we're going to talk about the appraiser has to come up with a scope. Basically, what is the scope of work? Well, today we're going to be just looking at 1 to 4 family residential, because that's pretty much what we're looking for. Other than that, you're in commercial or other reasons for doing appraisals, land values, things like that. So today we're basically just going to stay with the UR8R 1004. That is the 1 to 4 family. It actually covers the market approach, the cost approach, and the income approach. We're going to spend most of our time in the market approach because that's pretty much what everybody's looking at today. Anyway, so the important thing is to decide, the appraiser goes, okay, here's the scope of work that I'm going to do. The second thing is, what is the highest and best use of the property itself? Well, today we're going to be concerned with single family residential form. And so that's going to be our focus today on the highest and best use, what it is. Now, you've all probably learned in a real estate school and at some point heard that land is an investment in perpetuity. That means that land is stationary. It is significant. It stays in one place. It can change over time, over 10 years, over 100 years, over 200 years. The purpose of that land changes. But we want to find out, the appraiser wants to find out what is the highest and best use of that particular piece of property. We're going to be focusing on that today. So again, if it's a single family residential, assume that we are looking, is the appraiser looking at that? Is that actually the highest and best use of that piece of land? That investment in perpetuity is what returns the greatest value to the land. So if a house is on a piece of land that might do better as a multi-unit, or it might do better as a commercial piece of property, we wouldn't want to say that that's the highest and best use just because house is sitting on it. So the appraiser has to look at the neighborhood, the trends, and all of that. So everything that we're going to talk about in this depreciation area here has to do with that. So I just want to give you a little background about where that was coming from. So now we're going to delve into these pages here. And guys, here it's the pages that I've given you that says appraisal terms explained. And we're going to start with physical depreciation. So why do we want to start there? Well, this is we have a piece of land. There is an improvement on it. So appraisers kind of look as a rule of thumb that if a house is brand new, it's going to last about 60 years. And at the end of that 60 years, something is going to change. It either needs to be, the life either needs to be extended through repairs and renovation, or it needs to change. And all of those neighborhood trends are going to tell you that. So we're looking at a home that's brand new. And there's three things that are involved as far as age goes. We have the actual age, which let's just say it's 10 years old. We have the effective age, which tells us how old does it really look? Does it look like it's 5 years old? Does it look like it's 20 years old? How hard has it been lived in and what does the depreciation look like? And then there's the remaining economic life. So I mentioned that 60 years. So let's say we have a house that's 15 years old and let's say it hasn't been maintained real well. I find that about every 15 years, houses need to be updated. Kitchens change, bathrooms change, carpet change, colors change, and all of that. And these are just basically cosmetic things for the most part. Sometimes there are actual physical things because again, physical depreciation is a loss in value due to normal wear and tear. So, and of that, we have short-lived items and long-lived items, which we'll talk about in a minute. But getting back to this period of, okay, the house is 15 years old. We had 60 years. So that would bring it down to about a 45-year-old effective age or actual age is what we say, actual age, because we've already used 15 years of it up. But if it has been, let's just say it's not been maintained very well, it may look like it's 20 to 25 years. So the appraiser is going to look at the remaining economic life and say it's only 35 years remaining economic life. The 45 that you thought that it might be, just because based on actual age. Why is this important? Well, this ratio has to do with how on the second page in the grid, that appraiser is going to determine the quality, the condition, and how it compares to the comparables that he's comparing the subject to, that they're being compared to the subject. So if the subject is better than, it gets a plus. If it's less than, it gets a minus. So that's why this ratio is important. And all this is on the front page. And we're going to go over that when we get to that URAR. But right now, I want you to get the concept of how they come up with these three terms. And those, I think, are the important things when we're talking about the physical depreciation, when we're talking about actual age versus effective age equaling remaining economic life, which is sometimes called the REL. And you probably had this in some of your classes in real estate school, but I wanted to bring that forward as to how it relates to the appraisal. So when you get into physical depreciation, Any questions about that before I move on? It's pretty clear cut, but we're gonna be talking about that as we move along. When we get into physical depreciation, it is curable or incurable. So what makes that happen? Okay. They're basically curable is if the cost to do the repairs does not exceed its market value, it's curable. But if the cost of doing the repairs exceeds its market value, it's considered incurable. So that doesn't mean you can't buy it. It's just that it might not be a good investment depending on what you're going to do with it. So let's take an example. We get a house that, well, let me ask you this. There's short-lived items and there's long-lived items. So what do you think some short-lived items of physical depreciation might be? You know, it's like driving a car. You buy a brand new car, you drive it off the lot, it depreciates immediately because the tires are now being worn, getting grease on the steering wheel, whatever you do to depreciate a car, spill coffee in the seat. So what happens in a house short-term, which you say would be short-term physical depreciation? And it's very fixable.
What kind of a time frame are you talking about?
Well, now that's
5 years?
short-term, yeah. I kind of look at 10 to 15 years as still being somewhat short-term. Because as I said, at 15 years, we see a lot of market trends that change. So at that point in time, you might need to change the carpet, the kitchen, the counters, the painting, you see. So I would consider a lot of those as short-term. Anything else that you'd like to throw in that bin?
So are you including things like those curable items like plumbing issues?
Those are more long-term.
Those are long.
Yeah, I would consider those long-term unless you build a new house and everything goes.
So short term primarily.
What?
Countertops, flooring.
Well, I.
Heating or,
I was just gonna say it's short term cosmetic versus.
In a way, yes, and I would, but not just, for example, I would say after 10 years, carpeting needs to be. looked
Yeah.
at. Okay, vinyl tile versus ceramic tile.
Or electric plank versus hardwood.
Yeah, those kind of things, but they can almost border on a little more long-term, so it is a judgment call. When you get to,
Not like a hot water heater, is that short term?
well, I'd say that it should last 8 or 10 years.
Yeah.
don't you? So I would put that into that bucket. I would say that's a little more long-term. It is ongoing maintenance. You got HVAC, you've got roof. Roof is very long-term.
Okay, so those would all be in the long term. Okay.
And I would hope that, foundation would be in the long term.
gonna say, what about those?
A long-term should be windows.
Right.
A very long-term should be the interior of the studs and of your, of your insulation, those types of things.
HVAC.
Well, even that, that can be 10 to 15 years, maybe, or maybe longer. It just depends on how much it's used. But I think when you're looking at replace, why is this important? Well, when we walk into that 10-year-old house, we've got to, the appraiser has to look and say, what is the condition of these things? Does the carpet, I mean, they don't look too much, at design and that sort of thing, but they are going to look at the type of, do you have granite instead of, vinyl countertop or corian? Corian is out right now and people are not going to pay. So what happens? It's a loss in value of maybe a great floor plan, a great house, but it's a loss in value because it's not up to today's standards of what people are expecting in a home for the price point of that neighborhood. And again, everything is compared to the comparables. What is going on? What are the trends, not only in the market in general, but the neighborhood in particular? So all of those things are where the appraiser has got to make these judgment calls. So you're going into a neighborhood, you're seeing, what is that neighborhood? Is it in rejuvenation? Is it static? Is it declining? So we have to look at that first to determine what is the standard of the neighborhood. And therefore, then we look at the property itself and where does that fall into it?
My question is, when I took this class, I kind of went in with the mindset that I would need to, or I would want better knowledge to be able to explain how an appraisal came back to the seller. But is this something that with even, I guess, a rudimentary knowledge of how appraisals work, that you
It
could.
is to a point, and then we're going to get into how to present that appraisal by looking at all of these things. See, we have to have data in order to explain to our clients why they should or would or need to do these things so that they can get the dollar amount that they think they are owed. And that's, I think, the issue that we fight today. We walk into a house, people go, hey, my neighbor's house just sold for $500,000, want to listen to that. I go, yeah, but they redid everything inside. And it was staged, it had eye candy, it looked good. People walked in, they had multiple offers. And I am finding that today. That's still happening. If that house looks good and it's in a neighborhood that people want to live in, I promise you, you're going to have multiple offers today. And yet we have things that are sitting longer, and I can give examples in my own neighborhood that I just listed, and I will share that with you because it blew my mind what happened with my house. I put it out there, but I spent $46,000 on renovating the kitchen and putting new windows.
Before you ever put it on the market.
Before I put it on the market. I had it looking good, you know, and I used Curvio. Okay, I wanted to use them on purpose because I wanted to see, do they work? And then now I find out that Keller is getting the Curvio sister, brother, whatever, you know, kind of the same thing. I would definitely use it. So I put it on the market on Thursday. It sold Friday at noon to the second person who looked at it. I had 6 more people online that wanted to see it. And I marked it, I put it in what I felt was the absolute top of the market. I felt like it could appraise, but it was a squeaker at 560. Came in 15,000 over. Sweet. I know. And so, but why? Either were now our neighborhood doesn't have a lot. I'm in the shores over in Rockall. It doesn't have a lot of listings right now, maybe 4. And most of them are larger than mine, maybe 1 more bedroom, maybe a pool. And they're sitting. Why? Because the kitchen has the old granite in it. Because the colors are gold, you know, and I went with the white and gray. I know it's going out, but you know what, right now, that's what they're buying. And it went to a young family.
I was
in
going
their
to say,
30s.
our statistics show that young buyers will max out their budget to get a home in updated condition
Right.
versus an older one that's a better buy.
Yep,
Like we might look at it as an option, younger buyers will not.
no, they don't, and they
They
don't
don't have the
understand.
timing and
They'll buy the
the-
brand new 6 house, you know, the toothpick house that's just being built. They'll buy that because they like the colors in it. It doesn't matter, it's gonna all fall apart in 3 years, but they'll buy that because it's eye candy to them.
That's right,
And they don't see the value of the older home that's solid. Yeah,
that's
Paul.
right.
So one question, and I want to chime in on your comment just a second ago, because where is this going to get us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, on the question,
Buy older homes and hold on to it. And fix them.
the sales comparison approach versus the cost approach.
Yes.
What is the difference in those?
Okay, well, the cost approach is the principle of substitution. Okay, and that's one of the principles that the appraisers have to lean on. If I can build the same house and it's newer for the same price as the older house, does it make sense to do that? So you've got a neighborhood where there's mixed, well, for example, let's just use Dallas. East Dallas, Highland Park, Bishop's Arts, you know, wherever you want, White Rock Lake. So we have new homes going in there, but we also have the older homes that are selling quite high if they're just renovated, all right? So when you look at that and you say, okay, can I build a brand new house and get the same amount of money for what you're asking in your old house, and I don't have to deal with the 50-year-old foundation and, you know, and an older roof and that sort of thing? Would you build or buy the new home? And so that's the difference between the cost approach and the existing homes, what's on the market. So when you're dealing in Dallas, you've got a lot more to deal with than you do in Frisco and Plano and, you know, in all these new subdivisions, because you pretty much have new houses against new houses or old homes in a neighborhood that's truly established that aren't under renovation.
Build it,
The what?
cost approach is how much it would cost you to build.
Less different, yeah, exactly. And you look at the cost approach also, okay, if I were to rebuild this home that's 25 years old, I have to rebuild it at cost new based on items that are not exact to what it originally was. And then I have to depreciate it. This is why we're talking about depreciation. I have to depreciate that back down. So if I'm gonna use the cost approach on a 25-year-old house, which most appraisers are not doing anymore, okay? I might add, I like to do it because I like to see, if I was gonna do an appraisal, I would wanna see, okay, can I build this new? And what is it gonna cost me to take it back down to what the condition is of this home that I'm looking at that's pre-existing? And then add the land value and the landscaping back in, where do I come out? So it, you know, that depreciation has got to match with what you're using on the grid when you're using your condition and your quality of construction, and you're making those adjustments on the grid portion of your appraisal. So that's how they relate. But again, today, unless the house is rather new that you're getting appraised and you're using the market value, I would use the market. You could use the cost approach to support that value. But just like the income approach, you know, I wouldn't use the income approach on a newer home, but I would use it on a 45-year-old home that's been renovated in a neighborhood where there's rentals. So it just depends again on what neighborhood you're in.
But let me build on the comment that he made, and I think you're absolutely right. We're not trying to turn people into appraisers, but it's important, what I found, to be able to speak their language. Because a lot of times we come in and we talk parables as columns per feet, and then you kind of get down and making substitutions. But April coached me when I was listing a 1,200 square foot bungalow down in Old East Dallas. And it was built in 1920.
27.
Like that. Older property, and it was right at the heart of when the market collapsed on us about a year ago. Apparently it is, but not so much the tree that was out front that was built, put in at the same time. But where I'm headed with this is she helped me put together a package for the appraiser, because I was very concerned. I've been on the market for a long period of time. And we reduced it slightly after, you know, restaging it, and staging made a huge difference. But I took the approach of, I put together some information for you. Would you be interested in seeing how I came up with the price that we did for the house? There's not a single appraiser that's going to say, no, I don't want to see that. And all I did is put it in a package, and I had a cover letter on there, just explains what I presented. It was very, you know, I'm not here to give you my opinion. I'm just trying to help support how I got to my.
That's the
price.
key.
And that was the key thing he was looking for. I walked outside, kind of strolled around a little bit, came back in, he goes, he's reading through the package, and at the end of the session, he goes, that's the best package anybody's ever put together for me. But it was really just kind of following a format that she had given me and pointing out, okay, here's all the comparables that we used. And obviously I didn't get to see his final report, but it was well worth it. And the only time I've not put together that package was on a condo that I sold, my own personal, and I got screwed by not doing it.
And it's so funny because, okay, so if you stay in this class today, you're going to get the packet. You're going to get the open letter to the appraisal, to the appraiser, as to what to put in there. And I'm going to show you, if you stay, I want to show you how to do a CMA off of our Netris, okay? That isn't the quick CMA and it's not the big CMA. It's another one that they have on there that I use, and I put it in this book. So this is the reason that you want to understand. So let me go back to how I came up with the value of the home that I just sold for myself. What happened was I went ahead and pulled, okay, so there weren't many sales in my neighborhood, and I wanted to come in at 560. So what I did is I pulled, house was 2,750 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bath, nice lot, and renovated kitchen and so forth. So I went out in the marketplace. Now Rockwall is a smaller community because it's very, you know, broad. I mean, you know, you've got little neighborhoods everywhere, but we are the smallest county in all of Texas. So, oh yeah, Rockwall is the smallest county in Texas. And so what you've got, I had to go out and look for homes that were between 2,700 and 2,800 square feet that had 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. That was 34 years old. and what was renovated. So I had to find like properties, and I've done this, I'll get to that in just a second. I had to find like properties that would, if I was a family looking for a home like that, where would I look? So I had to make sense out of the market, because the market was not in my neighborhood. There were no sales that would really support my house. There were some that were close, and there were listings that were over, that they weren't selling. That didn't, yeah. And so just to give you an idea, and normally, the appraisal belongs to the person who pays for it. And the seller paid for it, and I was, the buyer paid for it, so I was the seller. But I did talk to the lender. I said, if in fact they would like to share, I would like to know what it came in. And just a little sideline, the guy that bought the house is helping his daughter buy it, and he's a Remax agent. It was such a smooth sale. It was so nice to deal with, somebody who knew what they were doing. But he called me, he let me know what it was, and it came in. He goes, "You're still got it, April." He said it came in at 562. And so it went like, getting back to what Paul said, I only had one deal. It was my first deal when I got my license back here. It was a condo down in Oak Lawn. And I didn't do the packet. I didn't think about doing the packet, and it came in low. And the appraiser actually did a very poor job on it, and we did appeal it, and he wouldn't change it. And so the agent and I just threw in some money and said, "Get this thing closed," because we don't really want to deal with this girl anymore. And so that's the only one I missed. I do it on everything, every sale I've had, whether I'm representing the buyer or the seller. And I'll tell you some of the sales as we move through this. I don't want to take a lot of time on personal stories there, but it really does work. Things where I was flabbergasted, but Paul's right. Nobody's doing this for me. And what I do is basically, when I put this together, I thought, I left this for you, and there's a letter to me just to give you an idea of how I arrived at this listing price, or how we arrived at our contract price. It doesn't matter if you're representing the seller or the buyer, you should do it. You're the agent, and you want to see that deal go to closing. And the one that I did, it was $899 over in Lakewood. We came in at $1.1 million. This was last summer, when things were still hot. And he just got tired. He said, "I'm tired of losing contracts, just come in at 1.2 or 1.18. And I said, okay, I did the packet, it came right in on the dollar. Because, and I used pending sales. We didn't even have closed sales, but because that neighborhood, things were flipping so fast and people were buying them so fast that we were able to show. And that's one of the letters that you're gonna see. Another one.
I've heard that you want to try and stay within 2.5 miles of the subject if you go outside the neighborhood. Is that correct?
The second letter that you're going to see was, I was in off of Keys. Okay, it was over by 5 Mile Creek, and nothing had sold over 400,000. We came in at 5.25. And so I had to prove, but it was done by an architect. It was on a home tour. It sat on an 1.5 acres. It backed to 5 Mile Creek. It was unique. So luckily I had sold some things over in Bishop Arts. So I was able to pull that over and show that a buyer with the same intention of buying a home that had that kind of personality, where would they have to go for that?
Right.
And so came in right on the dollar, 5.25. And because I put this packet together, I was representing the buyer.
So that's a guideline, not a hard and fast rule.
Exactly. So you never want to tell the appraiser, I don't mention any numbers when I'm in these letters. You're going to see that. I'm saying this is how we arrived at this. I want you to know it. And like I said, this market has been very, volatile. We, basically this is how we arrived at our contract price. And this is what we use to support. Thanks so much. And we'll go to the letters later, but I think it's, it amazes even me that this works so well. So this is why you want to understand when we talk about these depreciations, because you're going to go in as not only the listing agent, which is harder, in my opinion, than being the buying agent, because you could just go through, but the buying agent's got to defend the contract price. And, and if the contract price doesn't measure up to what the seller is asking, well, look at it this way. We got to go to the negotiation table, and we got to know then how much that seller's got to either contribute or the buyer's got to come up with the difference if he wants it bad enough. You see, so this is why it's important to know what that property is worth when you're looking, and I think in some respects, the buying agent has more responsibility because you're showing several homes and you're trying to look and say, okay, is this home even worth the asking price? Is it? You know, I mean, that's a good question. Just because somebody wants to make the offer doesn't mean it has the value. So as appraisers, or I mean, as agents, we've got to step back and do a better CMA. And we have to look and say, okay, we've got some work to do on this house. Now, if you don't do it, because I will be honest with you, my house should have sold for $480,000 without the repairs. And I knew what the market value was at that in its present existence. So it took us 6 weeks to get the work done, to do it. And you know, but you just you gotta listen. Your people have got to listen to you if they can, because, and if they don't want to, it's gonna take a hit in the pocket. Because it's a loss in value due to the fact that they haven't fixed it up to where it needs to be to meet today's standard. So again, we go to that physical depreciation. Is it, how old is the house? How old does the house look? What's its remaining economic life? And then we go and we say, is it curable? Is it incurable? Curable means, is it worth doing? Okay, you know, probably so. Mine was curable because I, you know, had enough equity in my home. I lived there long enough to be able to pull the equity out. A lot of people don't. So in that case, no, it's incurable because the cost to cure would override what they can get back in the house, unless they just have to sell and walk away at a loss. So that's why depreciation is important. Now, there's two more kinds, and we spent a lot of time on physical. There's two more kinds of depreciation that are very important: functional and economic. Now, functional, you know, as I said, physical is a loss in value due to normal wear and tear. Functional is a loss in value due to typically a loss in value of something inside the house. We don't go outside the house. Inside the house, the floor plan is not functional. Let's say it's a 2-bedroom in a neighborhood that only has 3 and 4 bedrooms. Or let's say it's a, I love this one, a 4-bedroom with 1 bath. I see that in Dallas all the time. I'm like, yeah, you got all these people. And so a 1-car garage and a 2-car garage, typical neighborhood, that could be functional. You could have a garage conversion where nobody else is and you've lost the garage. So can you see where something like that would then take value away from that home in comparison to one that has that amenity? Floor plans, that can be definitely a loss in value. I don't know, anybody seen a really weird floor plan that you think like this just, you know, my daughter had a house in off of Belmont when she first bought her first house, and we walked in, it was a living room, it was just really nice, and it's a little dining area here, and the kitchen was here. And then there was this room in the middle, and it had doors, and the master bedroom was in the back. And there was another bedroom over here, and this room was just sitting there in the middle, and they call it the dance floor because no one would actually do it. I presume it was like a family room, but in order, you had to walk through that room in order to get to any of the bedrooms or the kitchen. It was just weird. And so, but they sold it, you
Central
know.
atrium that was built in the 70s.
Yeah, that's another one.
They've eliminated those if they're redoing the houses, but a lot of.
I know. I'm kind of crazy. I know, I walked in and it was a charming house over on the Midway, and it had this big atrium, and I go like, oh, it could do the most fun
You
things.
can do fun things. I had somebody buy it for a room for their birds.
Yeah, well, why not, you know, all plants, or just make it a nice little solarium sitting area or whatever, but I don't know, I like houses with fun things.
But a lot of people consider it wasted space.
Well, it is, it truly is, and, you know,
It's right there in
It's right in the middle. That's
right in the middle, yeah. Yeah, oh, I don't know if y'all remember radiant heating on the floor. We had that in St. Louis, and it was a floor heated. The heat came from the floor. That went away after a while. But-
Passion pit, that's another one.
Oh, love the passion
The
pit, I know.
Sunken Dan's passion pit.
Well, there was a house up in Frisco that I was showing these gals that wanted to buy it, and Dean Martin could have lived there. I'm telling you, it was one of these.
Austin Powers.
Yeah, walked in, had the wall, you know, and then you go in and it was the pit.
And they're upholstered up the sides. With the seating
It
bed.
wasn't that bad, this wasn't that bad, but here's some functional there on that particular house. So it was really neat, you walked in and you had the living room, you had a sitting area over here, the master was over here, the kitchen was over here. There was absolutely no way to get out of the back of the house. You had to go down the hall through the utility room to get out the side door to go out the back. But that wasn't even the worst of it. So the kitchen was here and you had an eating area and you know, it was all plate glass windows. They could have easily put in a sliding glass door to get out to the back door. But anyway, so you had your refrigerator, your stove and everything, and there was a doorway and then it was a whole nother kitchen here. It was a stove and a refrigerator. And so I figured they probably at one time had a door there because there was a bedroom, a bathroom on that side, and I bet they rented that out, or in, you know, relative lived in it, in-law, whatever. But the problem was there was no way out of that house unless you went through the utility room. It's so crazy, and the front door. So anyhow, you know, those are some issues, and they didn't buy it because of that, and they wanted $799 for the house. It was on an acre. Our barking dogs next door that were really loud. So they decided not to, but that again is a good example of functional inutility where it's a loss in value from that. And you'll see some weird things. This one girl in our class, she walked into a house and they had this whole side of the house was like a whole nother house. And you know, you're kind of seeing that today with, you know, blended with the families living in there. And so it was like an apartment that was set aside, but it was within the original house. And to me, you know, obviously that was unfunctional or functional obsolescence. But then she goes, well, could it be an investment property? I go, no, because it's inside the house. And the only way to get in was through the main house, you know, but I guess you could say, well, they've got that downtown where you go into a foyer and, you know.
Question, if it's something like a garage, like in the older neighborhoods, it's where the garage doesn't go directly into the house.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's no access. And the neighborhood is like that.
Yeah.
That's not functional.
That's not functional obsolescence because the neighborhood supports it.
Right.
And that's exactly right. And so that's why what is functional obsolescence in one neighborhood is not in another. Okay. So that's functional. And we want to look at that because again, if there's fire resistance to something in the house, whether it is physical or functional, the loss in value. Does that make sense? So when you're going out to list a house or when you're showing a house, I love that commercial on TV where they open the door to the bathroom and it hits the toilet. It can't open all the way. It can only stay open, can't close. You know, it's kind of funny, but that's functional obsolescence. That would be a problem. And so I don't know if any of you on Facebook bring up realtors with a sense of humor. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. Some of the things that are out there, especially in the East. It can be really bad. So the third, any more questions on functional? I'm just kind of breezing over to some of this. I just want you to get some solid examples of what creates loss in value in a home. All right. And again, it's all then it affects its actual age and its remaining economic life. But when there's fire resistance to something, you need to make note of that, and that will cause a depreciation. The third kind is economic obsolescence. Now, functional obsolescence can be curable and incurable too. And again, the cost to cure, if it exceeds the market value, then it becomes more than you should do. And I do want to make a point here. It doesn't mean that it's not good. You can still have incurable functional obsolescence or physical obsolescence if you're going to live in the house and it's okay with you. It's okay with me. It just won't appraise to the value that the neighborhood has as a standard, okay? And you may want to fix it or you may not care. So it's not that you can't do it, and it certainly isn't illegal. It's just a matter of do you want to, all right? Does it make sense for you to do it? And your negotiating skills come into the fact that you're able to negotiate that into the right range if they're asking too much for it. Okay. So getting now to the third, economic obsolescence. This is the loss in value factors outside the property lines. Okay, so we're not talking about anything within the plat of that home. We're talking about, can you give me some ideas what you might think would be?
Rezoning to vacant property to something else commercial.
Well, maybe that would have to do more with highest and best use. Okay,
When Universal going in up at Briscoe, wouldn't that be economical? Because technically you got like the noise and then the traffic.
absolutely, absolutely. And people are kind of objecting to that because they're already so crowded up there and it's already so crazy. And then if you put to bring all that in and all the people that come with it, it's gonna be tough.
Panther Creek over in Fort Worth is that the people fighting around it. It's gonna be similar to what Collin Creek is trying to do, a Riverwalk where they have concerts and things like that. They've had to have some noise reevaluation for hours because it was creating a problem to the surrounding.
It's the way too late into the night. Yeah, exactly. And it can. The more common things that you might see, it could be situated on a busy corner of a street. So, a very, if you go down Mockingbird or anywhere in East Dallas and you see where these people live practically in the street and people are paying $1 million for this house, I just going, I don't get it. But anyway, it's noisy and the roads are bad, but anyway, people love it because of location. And that's the whole thing, we're seeing things happen. I think it's just about impossible to get anything under $1 million west of Central Expressway these days. I mean, it's really hard to find.
I have a question. Would it be, what kind of obsolescence would it be? A client has a $695,000 house in Prosper, right?
Okay,
And behind their house, there's a small road. Just on the other side of the road, they have now built a multifamily apartment.
okay. It can be, it just depends on, are there other homes around it that have that same influence? Is it real close?
Yeah, and
Okay,
they're saying they're gonna build, they're gonna plant trees. Well, it takes 100 years for the tree, but anyway.
Yeah,
The offers are coming in at 605, 606.
I take it and run.
It's sad.
Well, I would take it and run, and the reason why it's not going to get any better.
Right.
And that's the thing. And even though I don't know if y'all saw what I sent out the other day, it came across my Facebook and I put it out there. The NAR came out with the fact that nationwide, 70% of the home sales are showing an increase in value, 30% are not. I thought that it was kind of a very positive thing. We're looking at about 60 days on the market, but the market is still, values are holding and increasing. Okay, they aren't going down, and I don't see them going down. And we're not going to crash, guys. I went through 1986, all the S&Ls crashed, and I lived through that. Lost all my business. I had an appraisal firm. Lost all my clients. It was terrible, but that was due to a whole different thing. We had builders out there inflating appraisals and they were putting Mercedes in garages and selling the house and. What's his name out on the lake? Begins with an F. What's his name? Faulkner. They got in so much trouble. And so everything crashed and the loans that were being made that were so inflated, they call them colt loans. Don't make a loan in California, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Texas. And so it took until the mid-90s. See, back in the 80s, what you had to realize is everything in Dallas was oil and banking. That was it. We didn't have technology. We didn't have all the things we've got today. Now Dallas rebuilt itself after that and really became, expansive in its economic base. And thank goodness for that, because we were all just, it was either JR Ewing or the bankers, because it was oil or banking. So what happened in 2008, again, was a total different story. That was, obviously, they were making loans to people who were unable to pay it back. When they just went and turned the key, then it all got stuck with the mortgage holders, which Lehman Brothers, you know, we had to bail them out and all of that. Because, and it was ginormous. I mean, there were so many loans made that did crash the market. This market's totally different. We're having some foreclosures, but the foreclosures, most people can walk away with money in their pocket. If they turn it at the bank, they're breaking even, you know, or maybe there's a loss for some reason that they were over invested anyway. But typically speaking, the reason we're not seeing this big crash is because if you have to sell, you can. That's the difference. And even though the interest rates are high, when I moved here in the 70s, we were paying 14% when Carter was in. So, you know, it's happened before. You can survive it. It's not fun, and I don't like it. But we got so spoiled with 2%, 3%. And so use the buy downs, use the whatever you can get.
I was just gonna say, that whole thing about interest rate.
Yeah.
I had a young 23-year-old buyer in yesterday, he was talking about interest rates. So I just pulled up the chart that you see out there of the 30 years of interest rates. And talk about a picture worth 1,000 words. He got it after that. But 2 and 3% was just a fluke thing.
It was.
When he looked, he said, oh, this is the average. That was
Average. And the other thing is, you know, things are going to change. So you just refinance. I know Joe and we've owned 13 houses and we use ARMs over and over and over. You know, I mean, we'd go in on an ARM if we could. I wish they'd bring the ARMs back. I don't like the buy downs as much as I like the ARMs because they were 5 years. But you locked in, or you could refinance. And at the end of 5 years, you had a balloon note. And, you know, and then you just refinance. So it always worked well for us. It was not a big deal. And so there are ways around this, and people have to survive, and generally it floats to the top. Right now, we're in a limbo. I mean, I truly believe nobody really knows what's going to happen. And probably until after the next election, things will not settle down one way or another. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But economic obsolescence, just to give you an idea, I think a railroad track is a really good indicator of economic obsolescence.
High power grids.
Oh, yeah, the electric tree farms.
Electric tree farm.
That's what I call them, the electric tree farms. I know it. They're like, oh, everywhere. And they do, because some people don't care and other people, you know, definitely. I was showing a house where when we walked out in the front yard, there was that big steel thing right in the front yard, and you were looking at it on your dining room table, and like, you got to be kidding me. And so, I mean, yeah, naturally, people will buy that house, but
Because
not
there's nobody behind you.
Well,
Because there's nobody around you, it's more private.
well, no,
People would buy it.
no, not this one. This was a full neighborhood. And it was a whole trail of those. Yeah, the electric tree farm. But this is a funny story. Okay, so it's showing this young couple, the one who bought the house over, you know, for 1.1 that we got appraised. We were looking at this house over in in Forest Hills. It was not the Little Forest Hills, but it was a very end street, and it backed to the railroad track, if you're familiar with that, off of that street there that goes through whatever it is, just an L, and Lakewood or something, Lakeview, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, so it was the second house in, and we walked up to the house. It was adorable. I mean, you walked in and everything had been done to it. It was just beautiful, and it had a pool in the back and a pool house, and we fell in love with it. Everybody loved it, and it was right in the price range they wanted, because they were looking for something in the sixes or sevens that they could go ahead and rent out later. Okay, and they had a baby. It was about 4 months old, little baby boy, and so he was with us. Anyway, and we had this cute little baby room over to the side, so it was absolutely perfect. And I said, well, you know, and we saw that there was a railroad track. I said, well, the railroad track is behind it, but the fence was high, and everybody on that street was backing to that railroad track. So, you know, it wasn't a big deal. So he said, well, let's think about it. I said, yeah, I'll see if I can find out how often the train comes by and that sort of thing. So it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were leaving the house, and they were in the car in front. They were just getting in. I was getting in my car. All of a sudden, the earth begins to shake. The noise, belching black smoke all over the place. Car ran over and I go, the baby definitely is not going to sleep through this. It was awful. So later that night, the agent says, "What'd you think of the house?" You know? And I said, "Well, I have to be honest with you, that the railroad track was a deal breaker." And she goes, "Oh, well, they put in a noise ordinance. It's not gonna happen." I go, "Not at 5 o'clock in the afternoon." She goes, "I don't know if they ever sold that house." And I felt bad for the owners because they put all this money into it, just trying to make it look good, you know, so that they could sell it. And I don't know if it ever sold or not, but that was major economic obsolescence. And, you know, as I see, another good example. Does it matter or not? Bishop Park. So let's take that down there. If anybody's been down there or familiar with it, I was showing a house to a guy, he's single, and he was buying a house from a guy down there that was single. And the house was nice. It was all renovated inside. Right next door was an automotive shop. I mean, adjacent to this, and right across the street was a restaurant bar. And the guy couldn't afford, he goes, "Well, I like it. I just go over and drink it in the afternoon, you know." And my guy, it didn't bother him at all either. And I'm going like, so here you are in Bishop's Arts, it's a totally different thing. It's a culture down there that doesn't mind that. You see, and then it's further you go down this street, you were in the Kessler and the golf park and, you know, the golf course and all of that. So I think in cases of that, you have to look again at the neighborhood. Does it qualify as economic obsolescence in this particular neighborhood? So that's why it's important to know that neighborhood. So,
And question,
Yeah.
what quantity does over improvement go to?
okay, good. Thanks for asking that because I wanted to bring this up and forgot about it. This would be definitely functional obsolescence. And this is a story that I worked with an investor. They came from Washington State, felt sorry for his wife. She just had her sixth baby and the baby was a month old. And we're out there looking at houses, trying to find 3 homes. One for the mom and dad, one for the sister and kid, and one for this family of 6 kids and 2 adults. They've been living in a B&B for 6 weeks and it's all these people. And so we really just couldn't put the package together for the amount of money that he wanted to spend. And so we finally found a house over in Allen. It was on the east side of Allen. They had enough bedrooms for the family. Okay, not necessarily the extended family. Had a swimming pool, it's a corner lot, really liked it. His business is renovation. So he's got a company and so they went in and they, you know, did the cabinets, did the flooring, did all the stuff to make the house livable and stuff. So it was after I got over here and I called him one day and I said, you know, what's going on? How are things going? What did he do? I'm so glad you called. He said, because I want to do something. He said, we decided that we're just going to move the other families in with us. We just can't find anything that works. He didn't want to buy like 3 houses on one piece of property because the land, there was too much land. And so he said, we're going to build a 3rd story on this house. What do you think about it? He said, down the street, about a couple blocks away, there was a subdivision that went in and it was $1 million to $2 million homes. And he said, this will make my house the same size as their house. And I went, gee, I don't know. I said, you know, it's a really big over improvement. I said, it's not standard for the neighborhood. No, nobody else in your neighborhood. These were ranches and, you know, houses that were 20 years old, you know, and he's going to build this 3rd story on this gigantic lot. Well, he called me, he said, I'm going to do it. And I said, well, okay, I haven't talked back. I'm going to go see it and see if he did it, but he's not going to get that money back and he's not going to get $1 million for it. You know, we paid 5, right under 5, maybe 4.95, something like that.
So I'm seeing that a lot in Richardson and Old McKinney, where you have these old ranches, but you have lots where people are building or they're
Right.
not tearing down and rebuilding. So you're saying you're not gonna see the value?
No, let's take a step back. How many people are doing that? All you have to do is look at the east side of Dallas. They're doing it all over. Doesn't matter what street you're on, they'll tear down. Okay, my daughter lives in Little Forest Hills and the builder took I saw what they sold it for, $285,000 and built an $800,000 house on it. She bought it 3 or 4 years ago, and it is now worth $1.2 million. And because there are more houses on Little Forest Hills, they're tearing the little bungalows down and putting those in.
What about, for example, where you buy a home, you think you can do a short-term rental and put it, or have an ADU in it, and now it's being banned with that.
It's been what?
It's being banned, being
Oh.
taken back by the cities
Oh,
for Airbnbs in some areas. that-
okay, so you're
So
saying.
you buy a house.
Okay.
An owner buys a house with the intent of using it for a short-term rental.
Okay, so
Or puts in an ADU that
Yeah.
is permissible at the
Yeah,
time,
that's
but then the
right.
zoning changes, is that right?
Gotcha.
Is that the same thing?
Well,
Obsolescence?
no, it's not obsolescence. What it is you're gonna have to change it to a long-term rental or sell, or sell it as.
It's not,
single
it's
family.
not an example of economic.
No,
obsolescence.
it's not any
Zoning
kind of-
changes like,
It's not any kind of depreciation. What is changed is the intent. You see?
okay,
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the house itself or even the location. And I'm seeing more and more of that. In fact, in our neighborhood, I guess there's 2 Airbnbs in the Rockwall golf and yachts, no, golf and tennis, whatever it is. And they had a big party. They rented it out, so they had a big weekend party and so some of the neighbors complained, so they have to, now the HOA has got to look at that and say, okay, are we gonna limit this? Now, you know, in a lot of neighborhoods, there's only such a percentage that can be rented. But that has really nothing to do with.
that's zoning changes
It's
like
zoning.
that don't matter.
No,
What kind of zoning changes would matter?
well, the zoning change would matter, for example, down Lake Shore, a piece of property was several acres, big beautiful house on it. I think he was one of our state senators, something. Anyway, they passed away and they gave the property to the church. And it is now St. Benedict's Anglican Church. But here's the thing. The houses surrounding it, their backyards are looking into this church. Now, I have to say, they are doing a beautiful job with it. It's like a park and it's really beautiful. So other than Sunday morning and maybe one occasional day, it's not a huge church, it's not a mega church or anything like that, but still. I see
So
how,
zoning changes that affect use of the neighborhood, not just the property.
yeah, it can hurt you. And there's nothing you can do about it in any zoning change, whether they're gonna widen the road. They did Ridge Road and they took 5 feet of everybody's street. And I have to say, it looks great and it's great for the people driving it, but the people who live there lost 5 feet in their front yard. And so, and I heard they weren't even compensated for it. You gotta be kidding me. That's what one guy told me, he said, I never got any money for mine. I was like, you're
That
kidding.
happened in Houston. There was a big thing on one of the older neighborhoods. The city came through and ran the power lines, but it's the steel ones.
Wow.
And they just like literally just.
Well, that's what this one house
Yeah.
I show, and it's huge. It's like this big around and it's just in your front yard. It's just awful. So you take a hit. I had some other people, I was looking at some model homes one day and they came in and they were looking at model homes and they were so mad because they bought a house out on somewhere 276 or something out there. And they were widening the road and the agent never told them. And they said they knew that this was widening. Well, you can blame the agent, but still, there's due diligence on your part too, when you're buying something. You really should dig a little deeper or at least ask the questions, you know what I'm saying? So, because that's going to affect your value. I'm not saying it's gonna go down.
Bypass, creating bypass of Kenny.
Mhm.
Just since I'm relatively new, what's the procedure finding that information out?
Well, I would go to the city zoning I would go to city zoning and I would ask the questions. And they have a 5-year, 10-year plan. And they know what, they've got on the books to do. And that Ridge Road thing, it'd been on the books for over 5 years to do it. And, people complain, but they didn't complain too late. And so at that point, how about those dumb little roundabouts? There's this one street, that goes off the lake shore and goes down toward the lake the other way south. And the streets are just narrow and you've got these little pods that you have to go around that I just run over them. It's nuts. It's just going like, I can't even turn my car around these things. It's so silly. And so, but they do things that don't make sense. And then they don't widen the roads that need to be widened, but they'll put in 100,000 new homes, with 200,000 new cars going up and down the road at the same time. So, you need to be aware of what your future is gonna look like there if you're buying for yourself. We're getting a little bit off there, but I wanted you to understand the things about the depreciation, because that is going to be the main focus of affecting value. So let's see, what time?
11.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Okay, that was about all the time I wanted to spend on that. Any questions about that part? Because now we're going to put it into use on the URAR, which is the appraisal performance up. Now, I never used this, so we're gonna see how April does. Okay, the reason I wanted this up here, you actually have a hard copy of this, and it's in front of you, so if you want to look down, that's good. So basically what we're looking at, see this black line?
It's gonna fix this where it's not blocking you out.
Oh, thank you. Thank
You want to
you.
allow a recording or not?
Oh, yeah, you can allow it. Mhm, yeah. Here. All right.
Earlier, came back, so I don't know.
We may deny it.
Just, that I know, no, actually, you guys, it's fine. Okay, see that little black line going down there? On there, okay. So in the first part, it says subject. I'm gonna need glasses for this one. Okay, it says subject. So they're basically the appraiser, and I just want you to be familiar with reading the appraisal. Because I've had people call me and say, what's the value? You know, it's at the bottom of the second page, but that's, you know, where do I find the value? I know it's confusing because you're going, you don't want to make sure, you want to make sure you know what you're doing when you're explaining this, or at least.
At least look like you know what you're.
Well, exactly, you know, at least know where the appraiser is coming from with some of this stuff. So in the subject, it's just information about the subject and, you know, the legal description, the census and all of that. We used to do the contract, all that information used to be on there. It's not so much anymore. But neighborhood is where I want to talk about. Now, we've been talking about neighborhood, haven't we? That would be the economic obsolescence portion of what we were talking about. So it's asking, what are the characteristics of the neighborhood? We want to find out what the trends are. Is it suburban? How built up is it? Is it stable? Is it, you know, is it increasing? Is it decreasing? How many homes are there, you know, that are one family, two-story, two family or multifamily? How long does it take to market typically on this particular neighborhood? Because, you know, we're gonna get neighborhoods that takes a very long time because they're unique. And so at that point, it's going to affect the value. It's going to hang on the market a little longer. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just that there's not as high of a demand. And so it slows it down. What is the price range for single family or for multifamily, and what is the land use? And is the land being used to highest and best use? I mean, obviously, if I had a piece of property that would go commercial, or if I could put a satellite dish on it and get income from it, wouldn't that be better sometimes over a period of time? Or if there was an oil well, yeah, there's always that chance in Texas. So, you know, if I had a reason to want to change from the 1 to 4 family, and you would do that. But you know, commercial income stream is a totally different appraisal, and because it deals with income as well as the actual improvements on the property. So again, they just want to know, you know, is there an income producing property within close location of our subject home? Does that matter? Is it going in that direction? So this is what the appraiser is looking at as far as the neighborhood. And he'll basically give a small description of what's going on, what the location is. It's on the corner of A and B streets, and, you know, traffic is minimal. That, you know, he'll might put some comments on that. It says here, property values are stable. Marketing times typically under 3 months. And he talks a little bit about financing. This is old, so don't pay much attention to what that part is. Now we're getting down to the site. This is the next one. Yes, ma'am.
Question, how about this, the age, the one unit house, the age, so if the house is older, gonna price goes down?
No, not necessarily. Look at Swiss Avenue. Swiss Avenue downtown. I mean, you can't get in under $1 million and they're 100 years old. So, yeah, so there you go. In fact, my other daughter lives on Swiss, and there's a house down the street that went up for 1.3 and it sold for 1.8. in a matter of hours. And so as soon as it went on the market, and so there's high demands for that because of the culture of it, okay? So now we're getting down to the site. The site brings us to what we were talking about, not only economic obsolescence based on where the site is located, but also any functional things that might be going on. Typically speaking, most of the functional is on the inside. But I want to mention one functional thing that I had to do an appraisal on. There was a suicide that had been committed in the house, and apparently it was pretty messy, and so they fixed it all up. But now today, it only has to be like a murder case. If a suicide, you're really not supposed to be talking about it. But this was back in the 80s, and it was causing fire resistance. I had to measure, what is that fire resistance on a suicide? Think about that. You know, you got to find out chances of finding other houses that were suicidal is going to be out there, you know, or even a murder. There was a murder suicide over in Casalinda about 2 years ago, and the house sold. But I always go back to what's his name? Doris Day and Rock Hudson. Okay, Rock Hudson had AIDS, and when he passed, the house wouldn't sell and wouldn't sell. Well, they finally lowered the price enough to where it sold. So at some point, fire resistance goes away. All right, I just to make a point. And so basically, when you get into those kind of situations, a funny thing happened. I was showing a house to two guys that wanted to buy a house on a lake. It was over in Ellenville. And I don't usually go over there, but this particular was a lead, and I went over there. And so this guy, he's walking in, and I had opened the house up, and I knew that from talking to the agent that the husband had passed away, and the wife was selling the house. And so this guy walks in and he goes, something very bad happened here. Are you serious? And I went, what? Excuse me? And said, something very bad happened here. Someone died here. And I said, well, interestingly enough, I said the agent to tell me the husband passed away. He goes, it was very bad. I said, you know that? He goes, I can feel these things. I know these things. And he walked through, he gave me the creeps, and I said, well, am I okay? He goes, no, you're okay. But it was so weird. So again, buyer resistance. He was not going to buy that house. He felt something in there that he was not going to buy that house. So anyway, it can happen, you know. But anyway, the site typically can be affected to some degree, but mostly in this area, what they're just describing the site. Does it have the utilities? What is the size of it? Is it typical for the neighborhood? There are times when a site can be too small or too large for the existing properties, and then it becomes, it's too large, it's an over improvement. You're actually buying property that really doesn't add a whole lot of value to the land itself. Okay, and so that has to be determined, and some more things with flood maps and that sort of thing. Now we're getting down at the improvements, and this is the really the whole hunk of the deal here, because I spent so much time on physical. This is why, because we have to look at everything, the general description, the foundation, the exterior, the interior, what are the materials, what does it have inside of it? And then below it, there's room for more comments to talk about things. And if something were deficient in the house, if it did have a great degree of physical depreciation or possibly, you know, functional depreciation, we would discuss it here. Because why? Because on that second page, we've got to make an analysis of that. And we've got to make adjustments for that. And it all comes from this first page. So I know it's a little laborious to go through those definitions. It is super important. And it's important for you as agents, because as you go into this house to list, or if you're selling this house, you have to notice this stuff. And I try not to blab too much, because sometimes it just comes out. But I find it hard not to point out if something is bad about a house to my clients. I don't want to, you know, if they love it, I'm going to go, that's great, but you didn't notice, like the thing with the big in the front yard. I said, you didn't notice the utility line, right? Yeah, we did. You know, and you want to say something. I don't want to say anything negative about the house, but I do want to point out that, you know, there might be some kind of if it's a really obvious deficiency, I think it's our duty to maybe point that out. After all, they're our clients and we don't want them getting stuck with something that, you know, there might be a better choice for them. But if they really love it, I don't care. Yeah, as long as you know about it and you don't care, I don't care. So it's just that when I see that, so it's hard not to, for me, to at least say that, like with the railroad track, you know, the baby is not going to sleep through this train at night. All right, so we get to the back page, and I'm not, again, you've been through this in real estate school. Everything is compared to this, the subject is, if the subject is better than, it gets a plus. If it's less than, it gets a minus. So everything, all the comps are compared to it. You know, the subject is compared to comp number 1 to comp number 2 to comp number 3. For example, in this case, if you look down under the quality of construction, he is saying that the subject has better, less, that's count number 1 has a higher quality of construction. The lower the number, the better the quality. And so he gave it a minus. So subject was less than. Does that make sense to you? So when you're looking at these reports, I want you to understand where that comes from. And the same thing, so our subject, if you look at 1192 square feet, comp number 1 had 1,300, subject was less than, so it was a minus 6,500. Okay, if you go to 2, 3, they were about the same size, he made no adjustment, and the same thing on comp number 4, he put some more comps on the other side, but I just want you to see the relationship there. So I get this question all the time. And it says, okay, you have that sheet of paper that tells me how much a 2-bedroom would, you know, cost, or a half bath will cost, you know. Half bath in Highland Park is going to cost you a whole lot more than a half bath in Garland. Okay, that's all I can tell you. It has to be the neighborhood has to set that value. And that is a process called sales analysis. And what the appraisers should be doing and what they learn how to do is they would take 2 comparable sales that are equal in all things except the background. And they would see, what is that price difference? Was there a marketable difference? If this house has a pool and this house doesn't, is there a difference in, but they're the same size otherwise and everything else somewhat similar? Is there a difference? And so they go, yeah, well, they're paying $15,000 to $95,000 difference for a swimming pool in this neighborhood or this neighborhood. And so they will use that. Now, it's not like you do that on every single house, but when you're working in a neighborhood that you're familiar with, you know what the buyer acceptance or resistance is to that particular thing. So you want an appraiser that knows Plano. You want an appraiser that knows Lake Highlands. You see, we don't want someone from Sherman coming down to Bishop's Arc. They're not going to know what they planted on the moon, you know, so it's just,
We can't control that decision.
no, you can't. And that's the bad thing about appraisers today, because it's not necessarily their fault, but it is now on a lottery system. See, I used to work for companies that I would do their appraisals. I was one of their expert appraisers, right? And I knew, they knew what areas I knew, and that's where I appraised. Now, it comes up, it's, you know, the lender says, okay, number 5 is up to date, and he happens to be from Sherman, and he's going down to South Dallas. He doesn't know the difference. He should, but it's hard to do. And until you, appraisers are like doctors and lawyers. You can go to school, you can get the degree, you can learn classes, but if you, without the practice, you can't add to your repertoire of knowledge. And that's what it is. So most appraisers work as apprentices for like 2,000 hours of, it's probably a couple years of appraising. And so when you add, that's why I sell all over town. I don't go west of the tollway, but because it's just too far. But basically I go the tollway pretty much almost to Sherman. I go down to Waxahachie. I go over to Hunt County because I've been to all those places over the years and I know how to zero in and find that. And that's what we're going to talk about next, because I just want to briefly finish up this form and you can look at it at your own pleasure. But basically, the things that they have to look at, will you look down here on let's change this here. Or, makes the plan. Okay, April. It really doesn't matter. We're just gonna talk about this down here. If we go to the adjustment sales price down here, do you see those percentages? In this paperwork that I gave you, it has a little bit more information about the net and the gross of the percentages. The appraiser has to stay within this range, and if not, a major explanation has to be put into the report. For example, if your land value exceeds 20 or 25% up here in the cost approach, if you were to do that, you've got to explain why you're using that and why it is outside the range of, the cost, because typically land value should not exceed 20 or 25% of the cost of the residence that sits upon it. So in that case, you're going to have to explain. And that's what the rest of the pages behind this page talk about in its reconciliation, all right? So basically those percentages have to stay within. And in the paperwork that I gave you, it shows you what the percentage are. And that's just for your general knowledge. Again, you're not doing the appraisal, but you understand how to read the appraisal. So as you keep going down, now, if you use the income approach, it would be down here. If you use the cost approach, it's usually up here. I think, did they move it on the new form? Let's see. Yeah, and it says here indicated value by the income approach. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Cost approach is this much, and then the market value, where you're going to find that is right here. Indicated value by the sales comparison approach is $520,000. And so all of the information that you're really interested in is down here. Okay. So the reconciliation explains how he came to this value and basically where the emphasis would place. And in most cases, it's always going to be on the market approach. Okay. If you get into a neighborhood where there's a lot of rental properties and it's both, then I would look at the GRM, the gross rent multiplier, and and see if it was worth being an investment property. And Laura, you probably know a lot more about that. I'm a lot more familiar with that because you deal with it in your properties. So that's basically the form. And as I said, the next page over, he would go into a greater explanation of how they arrived at this, or if there were any questions that he knew that the underwriter was going to be asking, you want to address them the best way that you can there. So before we move on, yeah.
A quick question about the site, the electricity and the gas. So some house in the same community, but some of the cooking top use the gas, but some is use the electricity. So do the price gonna change? No.
No, not unless you're a chef. We're building a new house and it's a deal breaker. It better be gas. I am not cleaning that electric stuff anymore.
Yeah, I like the gas.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see that as really being an issue. But here's another thing that's happening today that's a deal breaker for me. They're taking out the bathtubs in the primary bathroom, and I'm going like, I like my bathtub. Other people don't care. They rather have a big shower, so.
We're talking about outlawing gas appliances.
Yeah, well,
Gas ranges.
well, they're just, what, are they gonna close all the restaurants? Please. This makes no sense at all.
I don't know.
New York already passed a law saying all new construction.
Yes, that's why we never live in New York.
It's harder.
I tell you what, I would cook over a fire pit before I gave up my gas. I am not
You
kidding.
can see her with a little coal stove.
Oh, no, seriously, the fireplace, whatever, but put the old thing across the fireplace again, cook the soup.
Question, if there's an explanation or it's under additional comments typically, isn't it? If they have to justify what
Yeah,
they're doing.
and that's on that next page in there, you'll be seeing some of that. So one of the things that I want to talk to you all about now, because this has just been, I think, it was an eye opener to me, and seeing what, this market is like, how are we to win these appraisals? and how to challenge the appraisal. Now, the old way was, okay, you get an appraisal, it didn't come in, and heck, I gave them a CMA, did they not look at it, you know? And so, what we want to do is in the lender's hands, and right now, the way you have to do it is you have to ask for an appeal, and then they go ahead and ask the appraiser. You have no contact with the appraiser. Appraisers are human beings, okay? They really are. They don't want to go in and ruin a deal. We used to, we always had the contract price and it was 80-20. And if we were close, we did everything we could to make that value because, I mean, you know, it was a good solid loan. I mean, if it was 1% down, maybe you didn't want to stretch it, you know, but the point is that we really did try to make these values. And when we didn't, we called the agents, help us out. You know, and so I don't know, I don't see appraisers doing that today. And they got so busy anyway, but.
Some of them do call. Occasionally.
Yeah.
I just asked for a redo. What was the word you used on redo?
Oh, well, you just want them to reassess the appraisal. Yeah, and you know, and generally speaking, so we had this condo, it was a 1-1, and he compared it to 2 2s all across the board down in Oak Lawn, and you all know that Oak Lawn will pull the money in, and it's a unique culture down there because there are a lot of single people and 1-1s work, but they only work for some people. If you've got a boy and a girl, you can't live in a 1-1, you know, and so basically it's a totally different animal. And to me, I felt it would have behooved him to go outside of the unit and not use the 2 2s in the unit as really solid because it's appealing to 2 different family groups and 2 different groups of people. He did not agree. And then he made a minus $27,000 condition adjustment because he even told the listing agent how much prettier. And I'm going like, oh my gosh. And that was the one that I lost because I never did pack it and never put it together. So it was after the fact and I resubmitted comparables for them, but you know, he had an ego and he wasn't going to change it. And I don't think he was really very experienced either. So it's just a matter of, we just lost a little bit on that one, a couple $1,000. But what I found works, and this is what I want to show you, is now I don't like this binder. This is not my favorite, but I was in a rush and this is for me, and I just left this for them. This is something that you might put together, you know, if you listed a property and you know, you would use that. But I kind of like to use something where the picture on the front of the house, you know, I'd like something with Keller Williams on the back, you know, if I could really use something branded, I think that would be so cool. But the guy didn't need to take it, but God bless you. But what he did take was my CMA. And the CMA that I did, again, is I had to go outside the area. So when you read this letter, for example, I want to read the one that was on 5 Mile Creek. I said, attached for your review are comparable sales used to arrive at an estimated listing price for the property located at Lost Creek, Dallas, Texas. The home was designed and built by developer Fred Carlton and the architect David Atterbury. This unique property is situated on 0.76 acres, heavily wooded creek lot with numerous decks, landscape areas situated as to enjoy a review of the exterior environment. The present owner has lived in the home for over 20+ years, meticulously restored it with numerous improvements and upgrades. In 2014, the home was featured in the 2014 Oak Cliff Home Tour. So I wanted to pull that information in. This is a unique home. And as I said, nothing had sold under 400, over 400,000. We were 5 1/4. Since there were no simpler, this is where the key came in. Since there are no similar recent sales that would offer the same amenities and appeal, the search has been expanded to Area 14. In those days, we could use Area 14 to find comparable properties that would attract like buyers. Time on the market for all sales was used between 2 and 32 days. Although 2 of the sales are within the last year, they are in the subject's immediate area and show acceptance and desirability. I also threw in land sales because we were sitting on almost 3/4 of an acre on 5 Mile Creek, and I put in land sales as well. I said, thank you in advance for your consideration of this data. Please feel free to contact me or myself or the listing agent with any additional information. Now, that was that. One thing you can't say is what I put on the other one here. Having been a real estate appraiser for 21 years, I know gathering this information can be time consuming. So I provided the full MLS agent information, text and photos for your convenience. Thank you in advance for all your hard work and estimated the value of this home. So, but you can say that, you just don't have to say you're an appraiser. Say, in order of convenience to you, I have done this. Now, here's where the key comes in. Most appraisers will just throw in a CMA, print it out. Maybe it'll be the short, quick CMA, just to give and I did put that in here. I stuck it in here. But what I had, I'm putting this together as if I'm showing, this is my home. Here's the taxes. This is the listed property. Here's the survey. Here's the flat plan. Here is the seller's disclosure. Here's the list of improvements. Here is the plot plan of the whole neighborhood. What makes this neighborhood so special? Then, this is the CMA that I want to show you how to use. This is a little bit different. Now, I like it and I don't like it. Part of it is, it's just a big overview. It shows my house, and then it shows the comps that I use, but it just gives an analysis here. What I really like to do is what I did after that. I printed each page out. This is number one. This is the agent full. This is super important to use this. Put in the taxes, put in all the pictures, put in a survey if you've got it, put in a plot plan, put in a map. Do that for every single one. If you use pending, do it for the pending, and do it for the listings as well. You're going to put in so much information. The reason you do that, when you hand them the CMA, they still have to go do all the work. What you have just done now is you've done their appraisal for them. You've given them everything that he has to look at to make, or she, to get an appraisal, to get a value, or to get information off that house. So by putting that full thing in, you're able to really eliminate all his probably an hour or two's worth of work of him gathering that information. He doesn't have to use it, but he'd be kind of silly not to. And you put this letter in and you've told him why you've used this. When you look at the second letter that I wrote, this was the one that went to the 1.1, and it said, basically, I want to give some insight how we arrived at making an offer for this property. As you're aware, this market is changing daily and keeping up with challenging, to say the least. I compiled recent sales, pending and active options that were available on your MLS for consideration. And we limited, and this is wrong in here, I just got copied wrong, but just pretend. We limited our search to this zip code. The motivating factor was the shortage of current inventory as well as current interest rates, which are showing a marketing time of 2 to 36 days. So, and then I went in to explain things, and then I listed the actual comparable sales that were available. And really, there was one that flipped. It sold for 1 point, it was listed for 1.2. It sold for 1.4. They got in the house. They decided they didn't want it. They found another house. They relisted at 1.4 and it sold for 1.6, all in 2 months. And so it was crazy. So you could see this. This was this house over in East Dallas, right near the country club. So you can see that there was high demand for this. And then I had 2 pending sales, and I called the agents and I said, I know you can't tell me, but can you tell me, did it sell for list price or over? And they went, oh yeah, way over. So I was able to say that in speaking with the agents. They implied that this property sold over. And that's how we came at 1.12 in that house. So if you'll give them the information.
You're also allowed to tell them, if you're the listing agent, that you had multiple offers.
Well, yeah, for sure. Well, and that was also listed in here as well. So this particular one doesn't make any sense because I kind of combined 2 different properties here, but that's okay. You can get the verbiage. You can see what you might want to say. You never want to tell them what they should appraise it at, okay? You never want to suggest that I'm doing this to make, it's for your convenience. I compiled these to let you know how we arrived at our contract offer or how we arrived at the listing price, you know, and that's all you have to say. And you're just using common sense.
Is this you meeting them there, or are you having a phone call? Selling them.
I leave it, if I'm not the listing agent, I contact the listing agent, I say, I want to leave this for the appraiser, is that okay? Oh, yeah. And so, so anyway, I either give it to her or him, or I leave it there. And I'd say, you know, please take this packet with you, it's yours to keep, you know, so he didn't take mine, but he did take the CMA, but he knew when we talked a little bit, he knew I had been appraiser, so I think, you know, that's why he didn't bother.
I have a listing, it's behind the rollator street, but
Okay.
it's front of the park.
Okay.
It's hard to do, so.
Well, it is. I've seen homes that, you know, really are beautiful backyards, you know, but then there's a busy street right behind it and you can actually see it. You know, there are people that it may bother and there are people that it may not. If a park's in front, obviously it has activity on both sides, so you have to look at that. Again, it's going to depend on the individual buyer. I would not really say it's economic, but it does have some issues, but what house doesn't? You got the neighbor with the barking dogs over here, you know, so, I mean, you're always going to have something, so do they love the area, it's, you know, and that sort of thing. Listing is a little harder because you're attractive. Buyers, you can say, okay, you know, they're pickier because they'll say, no, I don't want that, or I do want that. So that's the difference there. But in that case, it just depends. I know what you're talking about, properties are nice, and so it's just a matter of whether or not it matters to those people. I think if you're the listing agent, you've got to price it where it will appraise. If you do that, you'll be safe, because what happened is this guy called me. He said, April, I'm going to make you an offer you can't turn down. I'm going to offer you this much more over asking. I want a quick closing. I'm putting 15,000 in earnest money. And, you know, I mean, I just said, okay. I mean, I couldn't say no. So, and I didn't want to say no because Joe and I needed to resolve our life. And to me, it wasn't worth putting it on the market, going through the stress of having people walk, you know, through our house constantly and having it ready and taking care of the dog, Joe. So this really worked out good and I'm happy about it, but that's an individual thing. But I knew it would appraise. I said, look, I'm telling you now, I'm pretty sure it can appraise for 560, but I'm going to need partial waiver. So, and he said, no problem. So, you know, that's where you as an agent have got to come in. And when you're making that, you know, that offer, let's say you're the buyer and say, look, you can pay this, but you need to have, I've done the research. This is probably only going to, it looks like the CMA, because you don't want to represent yourself as an appraiser. Okay. But I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm looking, this can only appraise for this much. And I knew, like I said, it would probably be 480 without the renovations that we did. So even though I didn't double my money of investment, you know, I made the investment plus 30. So I was happy with that. And just basically, you got to figure that out. You got to know what the investment is outside.
So as an appraiser, are they doing what we're doing, looking at subdivision? I mean, I've heard people say, I don't know what appraisers are using, they're not using the same comps. So I
Well,
don't understand.
They don't have to, but you should know as the agent, and it doesn't matter which side you're on, you should be able to say, look, this is where we came up with this contract price of this offer, or this is where we came up with the listing. And if your people, let's say you're the listing agent, if they don't want to list it at what the appraised value should be, what you know it should be, then you got to talk to them and say, look, I will tell you, we can throw it out there, but two things are going to happen. You know, we're either going to lower the price or it's going to stay on the market a while, and you're going to have to decide whether or not you're going to come up. I don't like seller concessions. I don't want to have to pay them as a seller. I want to fair market value. Just go to fair market value, and that way it should sell. And we shouldn't have, and I don't like lowering prices. You know, I see that all the time. And I go, are you really having that conversation with your seller? Are you really having that? And say, do you really want it to be on the market for a longer period of time And do you want to make it look like something's wrong with it because you had to lower the price? Because that's exactly what people think. I get buyers all the time saying, hey, April, I want to see this house has been on the market for, 80 days and they're ready to deal. No, they're not. The thing is, it's just gonna sit. And then if it comes, or it's been, hey, they lowered the price. Well, they lowered it and they're not gonna go any lower if they don't have to. So, it just makes it look like a bargain. And so we try and be right on as much as we can. And if we don't, we know what the negotiation has to be. The buyer's either gonna have to come to the table with money or the seller's gonna have to give money. And that's always okay if in the fact that they're willing to do that. When you list that house for 5 or 6 something, who's gonna pay the difference of that $20,000-$30,000 that is probably going to be the appraised value, Sally? So someone's gotta pay. And
A couple of points, kind of build on what you were saying. I had a really good coach who taught me paired sales analysis. That's how that the appraisers go out and try to. So that's your first goal, is trying to match up appraisals that y'all are all looking at the same kind of basis. Because they will go across major streets, there's all these little tips. Secondly, about whether you meet the person or talk to them on the phone, I highly recommend finding a way to meet the person.
absolutely.
I take the boxes off of my house prior to them coming in. Because 50% of them have access, the other 50% don't.
Mhm.
But what I do is meet them at the house.
I-
I do a brief tour with them on the house. Say, I just want to point out a few things that have changed. They've invested in moving this wall, and it probably took 3 minutes to go through a walkthrough. But they got to see it through my eyes. Then I left the report and I just stepped out and let
Right.
him do his thing.
And the bad part is I deal with buyers primarily and I get leads. And so I'm, I may be meeting them at a house and we have 3 more houses to see. I hate going up to the house. First of all, can't get the lock open, right? It's always embarrassing. And then you get inside and you don't know what you're looking at either. When I set an appointment, I'm always there 15 minutes early and I'm in the house. Lights are on. I walk the whole house. I know everything about it. And I do the same thing Paul just said. I said, I've done a walkthrough. I just want to point out a few of the really nice features in this house. And I talk about A, B, C, and D. And then I step back. I said, go ahead and take your time, look around,
But just to add to that, it's critical that you be there in person to get that face-to-face interaction. You're the one who probably knows about it. And at the end of the day, it's just the thing that will stop a closing from happening. So
Yeah.
it's critically important that you be there.
Oh, it is. And it's that relationship. It really is. I know I will say one thing about it's so important. Like I say, I take these leads and I get a lot from Op City and it's hard to get the people to meet you, but they're not going to see that property without meeting me, and so I basically at least try and get them out one time. I find if I can get a hold of them, chances are they're going to end up buying something. If I don't, we just hang on the phone for months, and it's frustrating for everybody and you really don't get to them. And then all of a sudden I'll call them one day, oh yeah, we found something.
We bought a home Saturday.
Oh, yeah, thanks for telling me. And, so that's what'll happen. They'll just slip through your hands. And I will say Eddie Burns, when he was training us over there with all of these leads, which Monument, is a lead generated company. They basically said, you have got to meet them. I don't care what it is, you're gonna meet them on the first call, let's see, I'm available today at 2:00. Is that convenient for you? What would be, how about 1:00 tomorrow, whatever. If you have this script that you're gonna get them, they wanna see that property, you're gonna set the appointment, you're gonna meet them. And so I don't know how y'all working, basically off of SOI, are you working with any of the leads, like the RISE program here? Or anything?
Just the new people usually, not,
Just to meet people, you're more settled though.
not, the people that are solo agents, not people that are on teams,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, I know that much, that's all I know.
Well, what I have found.
Internet leads.
Internet leads, I've never, they're free, and then don't get those people, hey, we'll pay you 20%, we'll take 20%, and you take the rest. They are the worst leads. You call those people, they go, who are you? I'm not. They don't even know it, so their leads are they're no good. But I will tell you this, that the leads that I have taken over the past 3 years or so. And, you know, I literally did 12 million the first year with, in sales over at Monument. I mean, I did well there. I didn't leave because I wasn't doing well. And I took a cut to come over here because I wanted to learn better. But, I will tell you that the leads that I had, that I've sold over 3 years ago, they're all calling me now. I've got 4 of them right now that I've sold. The sister, the one is looking to move again, the other one's looking to move again. One 2 years ago, they're getting a divorce and they both want to use me. One wants to buy downtown and the other wants to sell the house. So it comes back to, and see, at that point, that's 100% to me now. So it's worth taking these leads.
It's curious, I mean, that they were not using internet leads that before
I'm sorry, what?
you said that don't do those internet leads, so what type of leads was Monument doing?
I mean, it's the same, you know, it's people who call in to, they were Zillow and Realtor. And so people who call in and then they have an inbound team that accepts these and the outbound team gives them out. And, you know, you're on a timer kind of thing. So the more successful you are, your seconds are cut down. So if, you know, like, I'm number, 7 out of like 32 or something. And so I'm up there because I had 12 closings with Realtor. So what happens is that the phone will ping, but chances are it's already been accepted by the person who's number 1, you know. So I get a lot of them, you know, it comes in and boom, and I'm right there, I hit it, but it's already been taken. But I also catch them. I would tell you to catch them around dinner time, catch them early in the morning, catch them late at night, because that's when other people are not. Dinner time's a great time to catch leads, you know, because most people are eating.
How do you get set up for this?
Well, Lucy's in charge of it here, and it's called the RISE program, and they're putting teams together. Now, I'm on the first team. I think there's 20 on the first team, and they're getting ready. Are they getting ready to put a second team together? You know, yeah, I think they said that. You're taking leads, right? Yeah, what do you think?
As far as like getting.
Well, I mean, what do you think about the program, and, you know, have you been successful?
I mean, it's.
Because you've got a high rating.
Yeah,
You got a higher one than me. I'm 117, you're 119, I think.
it's pretty good. I like it, but it's, you know, eventually, like. I'll just say this is just me personally.
Mhm.
Eventually, I'm trying to work my way to where I'm 100% referral business.
You should.
Where I don't have to
You
do that.
should, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, as far as like, the lead, the Obsidian and everything, like it's worked great.
I look at it as a part-time job. You know, when you really think about it, because obviously I'm trying to create my sphere. And if I spend more time with my sphere than I do there. Now, I've been pretty much on snooze for the leads for a whole week. I've been busy with all of the house trying to move and everything else. But so I just put it on snooze 24 hours at a time because I don't want to, if you don't pick it up, it's a ding against you.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do that. So you've got control over it. And but right
It's an
now,
opportunity to increase your sphere.
exactly, and that's what I'm telling you, the ones that I've already sold through the RISE program, or not even RISE, but even Monument, after 2 years, they become yours. So when they get ready to sell again, they don't go through them again, you know, and so it does build your sphere. I think it's a great program. I think it's a great way. See, when I came back to Dallas, and we had 250 at our wedding back in 1990. So we knew everybody in Dallas. We know nobody now. You know, they're all gone. I mean, at our age, you know, people have moved on, retired, moved away, you know, passed away. But
I have a lot of dead people.
they're dead. Okay, sorry, Paul. But anyway, we all pass on, so it just goes on. But so I had no way. Poor Dave Perry, you know, I was over there, loved that office. Those people were great. I was over at the Berkshire office and loved them. And I cried when I left. I said, I can't do anything for you. I don't know any people. I've been doing all the things that Tom Ferry says to do. It's just not working for me. And so, you know, so I had an opportunity at Monument, and I will only say good things about those people because it was really a wonderful opportunity. But again, they grew really fast and really big. There are over 1,000 agents now, and I don't want to be in that many agents, you know. This is a great office as far as the culture goes and as far as the people, and it's small enough to get to know people. And, you know, I think that's important, but mostly the education and the support we have here. We have Bob down the hall. I mean, I just called him the other day. I said, I got this deal, you know. They called me, this is the lead from years ago, and they called me and they said, we still want to buy that lot. And I looked up by the seller and the owner. Do you want to sell that lot? Yeah. So then I'm going like, okay, how do I represent this people? You know, there's stuff I don't know. And because that's the thing, if someone doesn't have your back, you're going to end up getting sued. And I don't want to get sued. And I'd rather, you know, get embarrassed here than say I don't know it. Than get sued. To look like a dummy here and say, I'm sorry, but I don't know what I'm doing here, you know, but if we're all that way, we can't all know everything. And until you're really in it for years and years and have, again, that experience on everything. So.
I just want to say something kind of going back to doing their appraisals is more than awesome coach, and she has trained as well. And one reason why I know that is because one of my good friends, he's a wow, I can't think of it. He's a lender for investment property.
Okay.
So organized lender.
Yeah.
And he tells me horror stories of people running comps on properties and bringing them to him. And
Okay.
just some of the basic fundamental like things that you would think of running comps is I can see how like agents will be like, oh, well, they must not be using the wrong comps. And it's because the agents aren't using it right.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so what you want to do, and especially in an area where you just don't have any comparable sales, you've got to go outside the area, and so does the appraiser. So you got to go, but what you want to do is find a property that's so like your property that would be a choice and a reasonable choice. Now, in like I said, in Rockwell, I was in neighborhoods that were not the golf club, but if they were still neighborhoods that were adjacent to it. And they weren't even far away. I mean, I might have been a little south of 66 and we're north of 66, but it just shows buyer attitude for that type of house. Now, you're not going to use all those, but I collectively, and I'll be honest with you, I backed into it. I went ahead and I said, I want 2,400 square foot houses in the 500s. What is out there? And I pulled it in, and then I weeded them out. And this is what I want you to do, because this is really important. Can we kind of crowd around somebody at your computer here? And
Yes.
I want to show you the CMA
Oh,
that I like
sure,
to do
sure.
here, if y'all want
Of
to see
course.
this. So we're gonna pull up the Netris. We're gonna go into search. We're gonna go in, go into search, go into souls and put 120 days. I think we
So-
can now safely go back 120
You
days.
wanted me to the detail search, right?
House search,
Okay.
detail, and go, go,
Yeah.
pending, you can just put the 90 days and then 120 into this, into the souls, okay?
Here,
Closed.
close.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, put 120, not 90.
120.
Yeah, we want to
We can
expand.
do it on the overhead.
Can you? Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you.
She's doing that.
Yeah.
Just a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
In doing adjustments, maybe you'll cover this, my pain point is when one has one thing and one has another. Where do you get updated adjustments to know?
They don't have those. So again, as I said, if you were going to compare, let's say, to find out what's a half bath worth. A half bath in Highland Park is gonna be worth a whole lot more than a half bath in Garland's. Okay. So what we have to look at is how much, or we have to take properties in Garland and see who has 2 baths and this only has a bath and a half, and what is the difference? Everything else
Everything
being
else
alike.
has to match.
Yeah, exactly. And that's called paired sales analysis. And it's kind of grueling. And actually, as an appraiser, I would sit there and do several on my scratch pads. I would just do several, one after the other after the other. I would just print out those grids and basically just work it out. Why? Because that goes into my file and I have substance to stand on. And the same thing goes for you guys doing the CMA. And that's what I'm gonna show you here. Good, she's getting in there, that's super duper. So, Laura, go to, search detail and put 120 in.
Are we doing it in zip code?
Yeah,
Okay, just a minute, gotta sign me in. And I go,
No,
then I got.
I'm gonna give you the zip code, yeah, yes. Once we get there, okay.
Quick search.
It doesn't matter, you have detail 120.
So when you see those, let's just keep in mind.
Right.
And, yeah, 120. Okay, pending. You can just hit 90, whatever. Yeah, that's good. Now over in zip code, we're just gonna use my zip code 75087.
Okay, let me share my screen here.
Yeah,
7.
okay, okay, guys.
By Zoom. Share that screen. Hello, wake up.
Okay, guys, this is where you wanna look now. Now, what I've done,
I think that will do it. Look at there.
all
I
right.
know what I'm doing almost.
Wow, terrific, okay. So let me tell you, there's two ways to do this. We can do the zip code, which is gonna be huge, okay? But I want to get a little more specific, so I'm gonna put the shores in. So would you go down where it says subdivision, you have to, did you put the, yeah, you have to put the little
And we
asterisk.
got 8 benches, is that correct?
8? Yeah, maybe, yeah, sure, that sounds good. We'll just start with 8.
All right,
Actually,
online, can you see the new screen?
okay,
Thumbs up if you can see it. I think it should share.
no, you got the wrong source. Okay, so here's what I want you to do, go back.
Okay.
And let's we wanted to, yeah, put your 120 in, 75087.
All right, let's do this again. Zip in.
The only reason I'm showing 120 instead of 90 is because I know that I've got to broaden that because we haven't had. a lot of sales. I
75087.
usually like to use 90 if I can.
And you want no asterisk on the shores or?
No, I
just
want
shores?
I want asterisk, the shores asterisk.
Oh, I didn't put the first asterisk.
Yeah, because you're gonna get more shores, we
Gotcha.
get a whole bunch of things that would,
Okay.
but I want to show you why.
25 benches.
Only 5.
25.
Yeah, good, okay. Now, I want you to go to subdivision name and double click on that, and that's going to go ahead and put it in alphabetical order. All right, now here's the shores down here, all right? Now we gotta make sure we're in the right shores, which it looks like we are. So go down and highlight number 18 through 25.
Okay. And can everybody online see what we're doing?
I'm picking out, and this is a really broad search that I'm bringing close, okay?
18 to 25, you said?
I keep going if there's more, because we want them all.
Just the shores? or the
Yeah,
shores?
just, shore 3 is good too, because it's all in there, yeah. So you need the next page, oh, is that it?
That's it.
Oh, perfect, okay. Now, what I want you to do is see, where is it, CMA? Yes, I
This
want
one
you
is
to
established
establish.
CMA.
Quick CMA is super, and I would definitely print it for that, because it's gonna give you an overview.
We just check. and see.
Yeah, just put down, your
See if
name,
we can see what, okay, there
Yeah.
with us.
put down contact name, the shores, I don't care, whatever, it doesn't matter. Or. It's,
Whoops, didn't like what I did. Oh, you
you
want
can
to
just put your name down, it's just gonna, what it's gonna do is put
Now
your
we're gonna
name
put
on the
the shores
report,
in here.
okay? Right,
Okay.
all right, now go ahead and create whatever, yeah, create a new contact. Oh, I'm sorry to make you do
That's
that,
okay,
but
it's important. Title.
this is actually making the front page of your CMA, which puts your name and number on there, okay? And that's what. Let's see. That's what this will look
Like
like
what I'm
when
doing.
it comes up.
You're gonna do the adjustments in this one?
No. No, see, that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to do any adjustments. It's not your job. That's the appraisers, and we sure don't want to insult them.
Gotcha.
All right, so let's make the report, create report.
Hopefully this should do it. It should say save, but it's not.
Okay, wait, you're supposed to do the syntax. Fill all fields.
Is this a required field?
I think so.
Oh, good.
That could be it, yeah, just. I never have taken the time to do this in this class, and that's why I wanted,
Show all fields, whatever. Oh, look at here. Do I have to do all this?
no,
I should.
something, no.
Why is it not allowing me to say?
Show fewer fields, I don't know. Can we move on from where you are on that page?
I put buyer. Did I need to put seller?
No,
Should be.
No, this
okay.
is a CMA. Oh, how about the property address? Is that it?
Well, yeah, probably home address, business
Yeah,
address.
just put, yeah, because it's gonna pull from MLS, put 1765 Plummer Drive, PLUMMER.
City Rockwell,
Yeah. It should automatically fill in, it's weird. Okay.
usually it'll pull it up.
Yeah.
Well, it's not liking me today. Let's see.
Right.
Here, let's see, did this come over here?
Because we're not gonna use every page in this report. You can print it, but the page that we want to leave out is the recommended price. Okay, we don't want to put that in our report. And what does,
Still not letting.
it's, yeah, I'm,
Is anybody seeing anything I'm missing? I'm trying to do this fast.
it's just like,
So, Mister, let's put it.
The ones highlighted should be the only thing.
Those are the only ones typically I have.
oh, email, maybe email address, try that.
Oh, okay, I'll put my.
Yeah, there you go.
business.
Maybe that's-
Thank you, Brad.
Yep.
Okay, now, let's see, is it gonna let me? Look at there.
Way to go, Brad. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now, here's what we want to do. These are the pages that we want. So we want to do hit pages. Put, yeah, okay, so we want the cover,
Okay,
we want the comparables,
you don't want the adjustment.
we don't want the adjustments.
Okay, so it's gonna let me
Yeah.
take that out.
Yeah,
And I took that out.
Okay,
Comparable,
yeah,
static.
and the map, and that's gonna give you a little grid and that sort of thing. Okay, so
So
then
that
go
should be
ahead.
covered.
upload custom pages.
File chosen.
Okay, I have a question real quick.
Yeah,
So I'm doing that, but it's like, each one has a drop down menu for like cover and comparables. Like, do you want
okay,
all of that information? Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Comparables, minimum, max, days on market, we want all of this.
I guess
Pricing
so.
recommendation.
Yeah, it's like,
Okay.
it's like it's asking more than it usually does, maybe anyway.
Versus timing, do we want all this?
Okay, how about, we got cover sheet with photo,
Right.
summary list, go over here, hit that. No price adjustments,
Oh, I see, we've got to
Yeah.
do, okay.
yeah,
We gotta hit it before it shows up over here.
okay,
Subject adjustments, yes or no?
no,
Okay, comparables, yes.
yes.
Okay.
Here we go.
That's the static.
I think that's the
I guarantee you effective pricing, blah, blah, blah. I don't think we do
benefits,
that, do we?
yeah, no,
Okay, and then mass.
certifiers, right, there you go.
Is that
I
it?
love the map, yeah, go ahead, now,
Now, set as default,
okay.
right?
All right, and then we want to go map adjust, I guess I usually go across things, hit finish up there,
Okay.
yeah. And it should download the PDF,
That word here. What am I?
Yeah, there you go.
Here we go.
doesn't matter there, okay.
Okay, you see it,
Now,
okay?
view CMA, yes, okay. Now, this is what you're gonna see, and it's gonna show you, now this again is not the same thing when I showed you the MLS full, agent full. We still wanna do agent full. An agent full looks like this, you've got the picture.
That's what you don't give to your customers. That's what's.
Yeah, that's what you don't give to your customers, and then it brings all of the comps up. And you've got taxes in there, it's almost like the comparable is gonna have as much information as your subject does, you see what I'm
Okay.
saying, it's almost like a comp is your subject. What we're trying to do is eliminate the appraiser from having to pull all this.
You can do that for every comp.
And I would use a flash drive and I take it up to UPS or just what you call it,
The place where.
yeah, and just let them download it and print it for you in color,
So
because.
for some reason, this one didn't pull the pictures.
No, that's okay. Oh,
Maybe it did.
yeah, there it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, there- yeah,
it did.
there they are. So when you go through this, you're gonna wanna use some of this stuff. Now keep going, because there is a page in there, I think it comes up, that says price, and we don't want that. And so you're just gonna pull that one out. So when you get your printing done, you just pull it out. Don't put it in your packet.
This is what you leave for the appraiser.
That's what I leave for the appraiser.
It's a
Yeah.
more thorough view than your.
And I-
The cloud,
It's less.
It's
fluffy than
less-
cloud.
Yeah, cloud has too many pictures. I mean, it's big and it's clumsy and and that's why I wanted to show.
Oh, so this is the one you leave out, pricing recommendation?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, throw that piece of paper out. Now, you don't have to do it here. they'll print it, and then when you go to the printer or when you print it yourself, just don't include it in your app. This is what I love, because you're able to do this little map here, which shows the locations of those homes. And then, of course, it gives you your analysis, and I think at the end, it might even put a value in there, I'm not sure. But I think we said not to.
Yeah.
I just like using that CMA better. Now, if you're in a hurry, I use that. If you've got time, you can even eliminate this and just use the agent, but I do like this because it has some grids in there. And, it just kind of shows you, oh, here's the days on market, and here's, the value inclusion here. So I think that that's important. So I do both, and then I pick and choose as to what I'm gonna put in the packet itself. But I do think agent full is definitely what you need to use, because that's what the appraiser pulls.
When you send the 2 letters, do you mind sending an example of your CMA?
I gave, no, I have the letters for you here.
I was gonna say.
I printed them, I just pulled them so that you guys would not be reading them during class. There you go. That one would be-
You've done this.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I basically really wanted, I just wanted to,
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
you are
I
well.
thought you weren't gonna give it to me, I was like. Thank you.
And yeah, I had a friend, but I thought, oh, if I give it to you now, you're gonna be focused through, not listening to what I have to say. So,
Does this go in the front?
you know what I do? I lay it on top of the file.
Oh.
I lay it to where they actually have to pick it up and read it.
Does it start out open letter to a
Yes.
person, or
Mhm.
do you
Yeah.
replace it, or-
Yes, I call it open letter.
So I had an appraiser, I
They're
know
not
a package for every one of my
Mhm.
listings, now that we're not in a market where they're selling in seconds.
Yeah, yeah.
You
You
can
can
do
do
the
that.
packet and
Uh-huh.
a flyer standard,
And it,
have the appraiser take that plus his package.
well, you can't exactly. Yeah, well, here's the thing. We sold some, we didn't even have a chance to do the flags. I didn't even get the orders placed. I was gonna do it the next day because I was still waiting for the photos to be done of it.
He did everything. He just a stand, I called him back, he said, oh, I'm sorry.
It's like an easel, it's like.
Are you finished with that? I did leave you copies of everything.
That's funny.
He said, I'm sorry.
It's so important, like I just.
No, I just was using that
What
now.
it does is, because Paul has mentioned to me that he said, I've never had an appraiser do that, or I mean, a client, an agent do that for me.
Well, we didn't have to the last 3 years.
No.
The house sold over in minutes.
And it's true, but it didn't always appraise. And see,
Well, I
this is
know.
the problem, because you're still gonna have to go to closing. Somebody's gotta pay the difference. And the appraisal waiver was taking care of that. Yeah. And so, but
So now we're back to a market where you
Uh-huh.
can use.
exactly. But that being said, I used every one that I got, and we appraised them all. And that was during that busy market when, there were, but I had these, heck, I had a condominium, I mean, a barndominium on 4.5 acres with 6,000 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. We try selling that, we got it sold. I mean, and then getting it appraised, because people don't, I had to find special appraisers to do barndominiums. I'm hoping that's getting better, because more and more people are building barndominiums. And regularly, I get the weirdest properties.
I have a question. Are tiny homes, is that an issue for appraising? Because
Tiny homes, this is a really great question. That and solar, I want to talk about both real quick. Tiny homes are basically mobile homes, okay? They are manufactured homes, all right? And I think that the trick is they have to be on a concrete base. If they are, I think they can be considered, and I really have to research that. I think they can be considered as single family residences, but tiny homes, do you know anything? Have you?
They're hard to.
Well, I mean, they're out there, and I know they're selling between $145,000 and maybe $300,000, depending on where they're at.
Condominiums?
No, tiny homes.
It depends on the
And if you
area.
go- if you go
to
out
Austin,
30,
you can get them appraised.
Yeah, if
Here
you're,
it's tougher.
well, I know, I bet it is. If you go out, that manufactured home place.
Right.
They've got the cutest tiny homes, but they really should be set on cement, just like a manufactured or a prefab home would be. And then again, I do want to mention solars as well. It's always a big headache. I have not found any appraiser that puts any value on solar energy. It's almost a negative because of the situation is at least who's paying for it. There's holes in the roof. If I don't want it, what do I do with this trash on the roof? You know, if it breaks down, whatever. So I think it's nothing but a big headache. And in my opinion, the way the world goes, pretty soon there'll be a little pocket-sized solar thing that you can put on your roof. It'll probably do your house. They've already got something out. I've been reading about it and you can plug it in or something. It's a small unit and it says electricity. That's what they say anyway. We'll see. But
I would
somebody-
say if they have a roof tiles, like you put a roof.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
potatoes,
right.
Teslas?
They have that. They're gonna get smaller and smaller and I would never put those things on. It's like computers. Remember the big boat anchor? You now look at it. It's on a watch. They're crazy.
Hey, thank you. It was a real
welcome.
presentation.
And feel free to call me. I've got some cards here. Yeah, and feel free to call me if you have questions. You know, I'm so happy to help. People help me along some of this.
That was.
That's great.
No.
That's what's because, you know, if you're brand new, it's hard to, you know, it's not.
I feel like it's very good. Like we've seen it like goes out, but now like after doing this, and then
You guys are trying to make it success. You're not even qualified to do this. You're only from there. Students in here. And I can just keep lying, just. Yeah, so thank you so much. Yeah. Maybe it's. Particularly views, I don't know, 20, 35, 30, 50, you know, it depends on the neighborhood it is. So if you're. You've been doing a higher dollar. I think $55. But really. You know. Because if you're trying to make it done. Wanted to end up in this crazy. Yeah. So. But Jackie, you call me if you have any questions. She called me. You were.
that's part of the work.
Actions ready to go.
So if you're trying to do something with social and this is probably that's how it's happening. Basis, you know, base market. Yeah, what we do. My gosh.
Good. It's okay.
Start. Well, and I think where your best bet is go ahead and see that. Here they're all written. I usually do 24 to 27, let's do 26 to 25. You see what I'm saying? 1,000, I mean, 200 on each side, right? So we do that. Then we want something that is comparable. We'll do that. And then we're gonna start looking at the vendors. And ask them, reason we're gonna put up there. What is this? See, every time you find anything. Right, it starts.
I'm trying to keep it as tight as possible to move out.
I mean, just being really tight, when people were saying, we want to be in a 2-mile radius or a 2-block or whatever. And in the day, when they were putting the Mercedes in the garage, they was like actually had like 4 homes, 2 outside the subdivision. They didn't even want to see one in the subdivision because they knew they were all inflated. So we had to find something that was a competing neighborhood to approve that neighborhood to prove that they weren't inflating the price. And even today, builders. One week and it's this price and that's it, all of a sudden it jumps up 10 or 15 pounds.
It's 5,000.
Yes.
I know, and you're like, big supply, oh, builder supply, oh, yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
And so now. And
Anybody else in there?
that went up to 450. And I. I'll probably my people walking in homes in front of me with $50,000 to $75,000 worth of equity because they come in September and these places follow the office. This is what they do. And it raises because people are still buying at the higher rate.
Yeah.
So you look at it and go like, oh, $2 and walk away with another 50.
I had a builder who, they promised my clients, she's like, on the handshake right now, that it's gonna appraise, $50,000 more. And this was after, like, so we got the house on a discount and all of that, they're like, this is just for the holidays. It appraised, it was like $2,000, it's like discount. And I was just like. But, yeah, and then they raised the prices after that. And I was like, yeah.
It's a college game for sure.
Yeah, because the price they raised, it was like a second.
We must be fighting with interest rate.
I know. I know. And I mean,
What means, you know, what you're doing.
Okay, it's easy to get like.
Easy.
and I feel bad because. And I like the original, but, it's so. It's so hard. However, you know, it's doing real estate.
You can't stand
There was a big rainstorm and it's the. No, we are not going to accept it. We are finding some shingles and we're. They made them up in the other house.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you know what? We had to have these. I mean, I was so upset. Didn't like their best stuff, the colors was good in there, let it up. You know, and you know, it's. I don't know, you know, I really wish they would, and I know they are. From the United States, and they all do better, and there was. Comment criticizing them on next door or something, and I said, well, in all, you know, deference to, I said. They're having a heck of a time trying to find contractors. I said, there's not enough people to build these homes. And I said, you know, and furthermore, as the, you know, the supply chain and everything else. I said, with that being said, they need to fix it.
Yeah.
And so.
Houses to come back, the appraisal result is lower, the value is lower than the house is sold. Eventually, yes, so we. Only if I reviewed with appraiser.
Well, you can always request, you know, for them to reassess that. You can, you know, challenge it. It doesn't usually work, and so to me, it's better to go in prepared rather than have to go in after the fact, and because then it's egg on their face. But this way, you're giving them a chance to see everything that's out there, and look, it'll work. If you know, here's the data that supports our prices, and then it gives them a chance to say, look, it's a scam. I mean, you know, it is. I mean, I was an appraiser. You're doing the best you can do with what you've got. You're using standards and practices, so you assume that you're right on, but that doesn't mean you can 100% know for the market. And all we can go on is past. We can't go on future. Now we have to look at trend though, and so trend has something to do with it. And so it's just good. If you don't have all about that. I want to look at how much money they're putting down, so that I know that at least the maybe it's a bad thing, that's.
Same section on, if I ask the question, if it's in the last one, why is that important?
Well, because it can be flipped, or, you know, for example, If you're gonna flip a house that's an FHA, you have to wait 6 months. They don't find it in the market to put them in, it's slowly, going on. If you try to list it, or if it's sold on a flip, or maybe it's a deed transfer or quick train, they're just trying to find out what the background is on that.
If it's recent, they're gonna look at it.
Exactly. Anyway, well, enjoy the class, you guys. Thank
Yeah,
you so
thank
much
you.
for attending.
Yeah, that. Nobody has a lender come, could the way recommend a lender use this appraisal?
Well, no, I mean,
Yeah.
see, it's a lottery. So even the lender can't choose.
If they reassess, you get another one,
No, you wouldn't have to pay for it. You would actually have to get the lender's approval to use another appraiser, and the seller or the buyer would have to pay for that appraisal. And I mean, they're not gonna, do it again,
There's no
so,
guarantee that it's
Uh-uh.
gonna.
and there's no guarantee that it will work. But let's
It's a
say,
long time, right?
Mhm.
The big bang.
but
that's right.
where you
Yeah,
can
right.
win it is if you see an error, and we didn't really get into that. The appraisers make mistakes, and like, either they will add this up wrong or something, and if you can find an actual error in it, then they do have to address that. But other than that, you're kind of just sticking your neck out there, and I know most appraisers try and do a good job, but especially last year's market, I mean, they were so rushed, and it was tough, and that's how you hate the appraisal. I really say just do away with them. Let's just go back to.
Real 90. And literally it went up in like I was nervous, right?
Yeah.
But it appraised.
I was like, here's the thing.
Like 2 weeks ago. The law guidance, 2 weeks ago, you're letting me pick over.
These people that bought last year, that were the one house that ended up paying 90,000 over, but nobody else did, and now we're into this year and. See what I'm saying? The last man standing, and you're going like, man, I just got screwed big time, but I did this to myself.
But I always have saved. That's
Yeah, but only that one house, but the rest didn't sell. And so now if they were today, that's what I'm saying, it would have been that one in the neighborhood that I gotta have that house, because I need a house.
Well, the other comes from a neighborhood where they were all inflated, so in this.
Yeah, well, in
case-
that case, that
Yeah.
works, yeah.
But yeah.
If everybody else is selling high, I set the high standard in our neighborhood. The houses that are going on it, listen, they don't know that I got 575, because we're closing on Wednesday, day after tomorrow. So, they don't know that when that hits the market, they're all gonna raise their price.
Correct.
They're like at 540,
Oh, wow.
I
Yeah.
know, and they, some of them have poles, and some of them, it was the right house and the right buyer, and. I just really think James.
Yep.
Nobody has a pole.
How much, how much?
Again, that's another thing, because in some neighborhoods, gonna be some people want poles, some people don't. It's like in our neighborhood has the golf course too, and I was getting against these houses, they were selling for 5 1/4 anywhere on the golf course with a pool. And I go like, geez, I mean, the competition was tough, but it was an older sale. So you just don't know. A lot of people don't want to be in the golf course because golf balls don't hit you, and break your windows. And so it just depends on whether you want a pool. I get more people when I'm working with buyers and say, I don't want a pool, it's too expensive,
Yeah.
That's how me and my wife are, like, we don't want to, like, we would much rather have a bigger yard.
And have the neighborhood pool or
Yeah.
whatever, exactly. I know, I always wondered that I've always had a pool in Texas, and several houses here. And we came back, I said, I'm not getting one that doesn't have a pool, it didn't. And so for 7 years, we lived there here without a pool, but we had the clubhouse, which was just beautiful anyway, so, we were able to use that, and Smooth subdivision has the same thing. And right now, we ran out of time.
Yeah.
It's too tired.
Yeah.
So they have all these, they're building around
Mhm.
like the community and
Yeah.
the amenities.
And they're so
It
nice.
makes a difference, you don't have to pay for that.
Well, you're paying for it, but
You're
it's at
paying
least,
for it.
at least it's in the payment, and that's the thing. I hate the muds and the pits. I do. I just hate them. I think that cities are really taken
They
us.
should eat the cost of that.
Of course they should, the developer should. I mean, after all, when did all this change, but it is what it is and you're not gonna get away from it, so. The best time to buy a house was 10 years ago, and if not that today, because it's.
Yeah,
I
well,
know.
pricing is normal.
I
I
know,
just
but
don't
that's
want to see
the time.
last year. I don't want to see 2021. I don't want to see that again.
No, I know, it really was horrible. I mean, your stomach, you were just like, and you felt bad for your people. You were writing, all we were doing is writing contracts, and it's not easy to write contracts.
No.
It's really consuming.
FHA buyers.
Oh, I know. This is much better. I use GD, sorry, but I write a contract. I always wrote my own contract. GD for my transaction coordinator
Oh,
here.
okay.
And I just go like, she's worth all of money. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry, but
I use them to write my contracts.
I don't usually either. This is the first time I've had a TC write my contract and
Is she the one with this office or is she someone else?
yeah, she's with this office under Marcia.
Okay.
And so she worked under her and she's newer and so it was just a breeze going because I had so much on my mind, especially.
Yeah.
And so but I just find that there's too much people. I just don't. And it's really nice to know that I'm.
Oh, yeah.
TC is just. That's the price increase. It's hard for me to look around.
Well, it's not that Jeannie, she's good, yeah, and she's very thorough,
Yeah, I use the transaction. Pretty good.
yeah.
Leasing coordinator. Do all the leases myself.
They have one here.
Yeah.
Doesn't she, Erin?
Oh, listing coordinator, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I actually have, ironically.
Jeannie does it. Yeah, Jeannie does it, she stages and she does that, now I did hire